Welcome to Looking Forward Monroe, where on this episode we are going to be talking about the Emergency Management Division located in Monroe County, and especially about MCANS, the Monroe County Alert Notification System. I'm Mike Clement, and with me is my co-host Doug Spade, and also Mark Hammond, the Director of Monroe County Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, Mike, and hello everyone. Thanks for watching the inaugural program, and it's our honor to be the co-hosts for this first broadcast of Looking Forward. And Mark Hammond, as Mike said, is the Director of the Emergency Management Program here in Monroe County, and thanks for joining us, Mark.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to share in the inaugural event here.
Now, we should confirm that you are not an emergency manager in the sense that we're hearing about now in many cities and schools, but you deal with helping the community with emergency or potential emergency situations.
Doug, thank you for making that clarification. Many of us in the emergency management field, since the emergency financial manager has come about, we've been taking some really bad hits on what our definition of our job is. We do nothing with the finances of jurisdictions. We are the disaster management people. We plan, prepare, and then mitigate the consequences of disasters that happen in jurisdictions.
And you really need the public's help to do this.
Without them, we'd be
well.
crippled.
Yeah.
We would absolutely be crippled. There's no way that we could do an effective job without their cooperation, knowing what to do, and moreover, knowing what not to do.
And that's one of the reasons we're doing this program, is one more opportunity for people in Monroe County to learn about what you do and how they can be prepared, because none of us like to think about an emergency occurring. We like to take for granted that it's always going to be a sunny day or there could never be some sort of a major disaster here, but it happens, and I think we can really see that this year with all of the flooding and the tornadoes and severe weather that we've experienced in many parts of the country. In fact, if I remember correctly, Mark, Monroe County is one of the top counties for incidences of tornadoes since, what, 1950?
A dubious honor that we definitely, I don't want to say enjoy in Monroe County, but we are one of those that seem to get hit more frequently than counties immediately around us. Lenawee, Wayne, and even down in Lucas County doesn't get the number of impacts that we do from severe weather.
And that's just one sort of potential disaster that you deal with, but it's one that people really think about right now. And what we're going to talk about, well, first of all, do you want to talk any more about what your office does than what we touched on?
Well, sure. We do a lot of things in emergency management. Our focus is, if you think about it, it's a circle of life, as we refer to it as. We would like to have everybody be prepared for emergencies in a lot of different ways. We do a lot of different things with going to schools during Fire Prevention Week. We provide a lot of the fire departments in the areas with information about emergency kits that we know the kids will take home to their parents. A lot of times the parents don't pick up that kind of stuff, but if the kids bring it home, the kids tend to reinforce that message. Look at stop, drop, and roll and the smoke detector, checking them every year. That's all because of our children being trained in schools. So we've reached out to that organization as well to help better prepare everyone, the young, the old, for emergencies. And once they're better prepared, there's less of an impact when we have to go into our response mode. We're not first responders in emergency management. We're consequence managers in emergency management. We tend to look at things as what the current situation is, what the possibilities, is it going to get better, is it going to get worse, or is it going to stabilize? And we come up with a plan B, what's going to happen, how we're going to do, what assets we have to put towards this. We support the local law enforcement, fire, public services, water and sewage departments. All those kind of agencies we support because they're critical to the infrastructure of Monroe County. And then as the event winds down, if it's not a significant event, if we can handle it with Monroe County assets, that's all the better. But if it is those unfortunate events where we have more of them than anyone else in the area, that we want to reach out to the state for assets or the federal government for assets through FEMA, we coordinate that. That's our job. And then we try to make people as whole again as possible. It's impossible to make them the way they were before the disaster. But what we try to do is to make them as whole as possible, and give them the things that they need, their house back again, make sure their schools are back up and running, their churches are rebuilt, their roads or infrastructures are there. Those are the kind of things that we'll focus on to put back, and then the human assets will then come back and regrow into the area. So that's really what we look at, and it just keeps going. It's a circle, and we just, as we mitigate problems, from floods, from windstorms, from ice storms, from tornadoes, from thunderstorms, we're back into the preparedness loop again, and then into the training, and all that stuff just keeps continuously going. So it's always a new disaster season at Monroe County Emergency Management.
And Mark, I would assume that in some sense you're sort of an invisible agency in the minds of most folks until that disaster happens, and then they're going to say, where are you? What can you do to help me? And you have to be constantly ready for that, ready to spring into action.
Mike, you couldn't have articulated that any better. We're always an hour late. It seems like people, where have you been? We needed you an hour ago. Well, you had to call us, and we'll be there. And we do have all of us are 24/7. We have a very small staff every day, but our Emergency Operations Center swells to over 50 people when we do activate the Emergency Operations Center to manage these disasters. And they're made up of community leaders, private industry, state and federal officials, all come to our Emergency Operations Center to make sure that the hazard in Monroe County is taken care of. So day-to-day operations, there's only a handful of us, but when we really need the help, all we got to do is make a call and they'll come to respond.
And I have to say, I think that you folks are really unsung heroes, because it could be, heaven forbid, something as big a disaster as a 911. As 911 was. So you really have to try to be prepared for just about any situation in the world that could happen. A lot of what ifs.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. That's the very kind words, and we like to think of ourselves as responders. We like to think of ourselves as supporters. The heroes are the guys that are out there on the front lines, and we try to support them and make them look good as much as we can. And we look back at all the things we talk about in emergency management we have to do, because when the weather gets bad, when the floodwaters come up, none of us are at home.
Yeah.
We're in the office. So our families, over the years, I'm not new to this arena, my family has grown up knowing that Dad isn't going to be there. That where's the emergency kit, and where's the flashlights, and how do we start the generator, and all those types of things. And I come from a family of public safety people. My brother-in-law is a public safety director. My other brother-in-law is a retired police lieutenant. So my whole family, for the most part, has prepared, as well as all of our families in emergency preparedness. The first responder families all have that duty to serve, and it's not something that we're compensated for, except that our desire to help people and to make people well again when they're at their desperate times. So.
And you mentioned schools, but I'm sure in general, if someone with an organization, a club or an organization or a church needs a good informative speaker, you'd be a great one, or your staff, to talk about these things.
We try to reach out as much we can, anytime we can, to both the schools, the civic organizations, the faith-based groups. Anytime we gather 4 or more people together that will listen to our preparedness message, we're out there really, really preaching it.
And how do they get in touch with you?
There's multiple ways. We've got a lot of, we're very, very live on the web. We have our Monroe County addresses. We share a lot of county assets with Wayne, Lenawee, St. Clair, Oakland in a consortium, so there's a lot of ways to get a hold of us that way. There's also the Twitter and Facebook accounts. If we're putting it in the social media terms that we're all getting, some of us reluctantly forced into, we are even reaching out those methods. So you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I think that's how you do that.
That's right.
And we've got, like I said, we've got a website that gets a whole lot of hits all the time. Anytime there's severe weather, how do I get information? How do I, am I in a floodplain? Those things. And a lot of times it's not our department that answers those questions. But the great thing about emergency management is we have all these guys behind us. We call them the rearward support. If I don't know it, I'm calling the planning department of the county, or I'm calling the state, or I'm calling the federal government, and I'm getting this person that calls my office that says, I need information about X, and I'm going to be able to turn them on to the right people. We have a lot of information in our office, but not all of it.
Now, they can still do it the old-fashioned way and call, too, right?
They absolutely can. They
Okay,
absolutely can.
where do they call?
They call 734-240-3135, and that number is a 9 to 5 number, but there's also a recording that comes on afterwards, and if it's an emergency, if you need to get us hold urgent, we want you to not hesitate to call 911, but you want to use the non-emergency number if you want to talk to us after hours or on the weekends by calling Monroe County Central Dispatch.
734-240-3135.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we should talk about Monroe County Alert Notification System, or MCAM. That, I think, is a remarkable program that's been in Monroe County almost a year. And I know there are still people who aren't totally familiar with what it is. And this is a great tool for, and a great, it's a tool that can provide some real security, a feeling of real security for people, I think. So tell us what MCAN is.
MCANS is an abbreviation for Monroe County Alert Notification System. We looked at a shortfall in Monroe County for notifying the public, and MCANS reaches that goal.
So if you have a phone, whether it's a landline or a cell phone, you can be on the list and you can be notified of emergencies.
Absolutely. It does hardline phones. It'll leave a message on your answering machine. It will call your cell phone. It will leave you a text message on your text device. It will send messages to your pager to call a number and get a pre-recorded message about an emergency event, as well as a number of different avenues as far as you can have them all on at once. You can have a succession of call my home phone first, call my cell phone second, email me next, and then text me. So you can get all of those anytime, anywhere you want them. And the great thing about MCANs is not only is it for the residents of Monroe County, but if you work in Monroe County or go to church in Monroe County, you can also sign up for MCANs to alert you while you're here in the county. We understand that not everybody chooses to live in Monroe County. I don't know why they do. This is a great place to live.
Yes, it is.
But if you work in Monroe County, we still want to be able to get the information out to you. If you work at any one of the schools or any one of the industries here in Monroe County, we want to make sure that you're protected as well. And by signing up on the website, looking at the different options, you can pick 3 different options as a resident of Monroe County. So you could have your home be an option that you wanted notified, your church, and maybe a daycare, where you have your children if they're not all in the same geographic area. So there may be something on a smaller scale that's going to affect the daycare. There may be a water outage in the area that may not be very well publicized. The local jurisdiction will contact us and say, we need to put out an MCANS alert to the area 1 mile around First Step Nursery, because that's when they're not going to have water for 2 days because the water mains broke out front. Not an emergency alert message, but it is an urgent notification that's going to affect somebody in Monroe County. So we'll send that message out to that area around that particular point of interest, as we call it. And you can pick 3 of those in Monroe County, and you can get notifications for all of those.
And the nice advantage to that, too, is one of the advantages is if you don't live in those areas, you're not going to be bothered by extra phone calls.
Absolutely right. And the same thing holds true for the transient type people that move through Monroe County. Through a federal mandate several years ago, the federal government has installed in the newer telephones that are 2 years or less old, a system that will allow emergency managers to send emergency messages to phones in the county that aren't signed up on the system.
If you have the number, right? If you have the number in your system.
Nope.
Nope, you don't even have to do that?
Don't even have to have a number.
Really?
It's a federal system, and it's designed in all the telephones. It's actually a second number, Doug, if you can, and this is in the layman's terms that I work in. You have your own cell phone number, and then this is a separate number that if it happens to move through Monroe County, it'll attach to a satellite tower in Monroe County, and if the Monroe County Emergency Management sends out a message that there's a evacuation order for a certain area of Monroe County and that tower's in it, that phone's going to go off, whether your phone's from Ishpeming or Fort Myers, Florida, or if it's here from Monroe County, it's going to go off. So it's a pretty cool feature that the federal government has installed all the new phones. It's the only problem we have with that system is the emergency managers are struggling with systems to use that. Our Everbridge product that we have that powers our MCANs is our solution to that. And it locks into that CMAS system that allows us to do that the federal government put in. So we're very happy the federal government put it in. The management of getting into it's just a little tricky, but for the most part, it's working real well for us. We've only had to use it. We've only used it twice here in Monroe County, and one was several years ago for a flood notification that it went out to all those phones, and it came out very clearly. We're limited in characters, but it's a very usable tool for those people that aren't signed up in the MCAN system.
That is amazing. Technology just keeps getting better and better all the time.
And as more and more people are changing their phones and getting a new phone because of features or things that are associated with it, that ensures they stay current. And you're probably increasing the number of people that you're reaching if you're in that type of situation.
Absolutely, and that we, as emergency managers, the regional legislation finally got passed was we all kind of got together. There's not a lot of emergency managers in the areas. There's only 82 of us probably in the whole state of Michigan. But we all got together across the nation and said we have to be able to reach this cell phone population. And this was the federal government through the Federal Communication Commission, a way to reach out and allow us to get to those people and allow us to get those emergency messages out when we needed them. We still use the same emergency alert system that has been around since the 50s. That crawl around the bottom of the TV screen and that really annoying tone that comes out. We still use that. But the disadvantage of that is you have to have your TV on or your radio on.
That's right.
To hear that. The great thing about this MCAN system is you don't have to have a TV or radio on to get the notification. It's going to ring your phone. It's going to make your cell phone go off. It's going to send you an email. And it's going to send you a text message. And I don't know many people that in this culture of constant connectivity that turn their phones off at night. I think everybody leaves their phones on. And you're going to get this message at 3 o'clock in the morning. We still use our outdoor warning sirens. Monroe County has a very sophisticated outdoor warning siren system. It has a majority of the county covered very securely. But that's for the people when they're outdoors. And if you live close to a siren, you may hear it indoors, especially on the last Wednesday of the month at 10 o'clock when we test them.
When it's tested.
Yeah, they tend to let us know right away that the sirens are working because it usually shakes the cups off the china cabinet if you're really close to them. But that, along with MCANs, along with the EAS messages, kind of fills out our emergency notification.
Well, the alerts complement each other. They really do. If I got that at 3 o'clock in the morning, the immediate thing I would do is pop the radio and TV on or NOAA weather, depending on what the alert was.
You're a well-educated man, Doug. That's a great idea, and you couldn't have articulated that any better, because that's what we want to do. We want to alert you, but then it's your responsibility to know what to do after that. And
Sure.
if it's a tornado warning, you know, and if it's for your area, if you live in a town that is broadcast or comes out on that message, you know, you need to take shelter and take your NOAA weather radio.
I would grab my radios and go to the basement.
Absolutely, and that's part of that preparedness talk that we go to all those civic organizations and faith-based groups. When you get this notification, hit the bunkers. That's what it's there for. We're not going to blow the sirens just because we want to blow the dust out of them.
No,
you know,
that's right.
We definitely don't want to do that. But when we blow those sirens, that means something. What we don't want you to do is call 911. Because the 911 people usually in that particular instance are getting really overwhelmed. We want you to tune into your alert notification systems, tune into your emergency broadcast systems, radio, TV, and as you're going to your place of shelter. Because that's really when we're sounding that siren, there's something wrong. You need to take shelter and assess it from your shelter.
Now, when we're talking, we've said a lot about the weather impact for MCANs, but it's really much broader than just weather alerts, correct?
Thanks, Mike. It absolutely is. It is used in two arenas. One, the emergency side, which we pretty much have talked about, the weather side of things. And then what we're calling the standard notifications. So if LaSalle, for example, is doing their fire hydrant maintenance, and they have to flow the fire hydrants every year and flush the mains and all that kind of stuff, we know that that's a bad time to wash your white shirts because the sediment gets in your washer and it really wrecks your shirts. Something that simple, LaSalle could get a hold of emergency management, and we could send out a community-wide message to all the people signed up for MCANs that during this week they're going to be testing, or they're going to be flowing the water, and you may not want to wash your white shirts. Something else we use it for is we annually inspect and test all of our sirens in the county. So basically that means somebody goes out there, opens the box up, somebody sits at our office, turns the switches, makes the siren turn, you know, does all the things that the siren does, and people are concerned. And sometimes it may be a question whether it's a weather emergency or not. We use MCANs to notify the people in those immediate areas that we're going to be testing the sirens, that we're going to be doing siren maintenance for this particular week. And then when we move farther north, we will say, okay, the next week we're going to do it farther north. So there's those kind of messages that go out as well. And boil water emergencies, the health department is really, really excited to use this tool. If we do happen to have some type of pandemic, whatever it is, whether it's swine flu, we can send out messages to the public and tell them where to go to get the vaccinations, when the hours are going to be open. We can direct them to the health department's website for more information. So this tool not only is going to give us emergency notifications, but it's going to give us standard notifications. We can go county-wide, we can go community-wide, we can go by zip codes, we can even draw a polygon or a circle or any kind of architecture you can think of relative to an emergency. So if we know that there's a 4-block area of concern around a potential barricaded gunman, and we want to tell everybody to stay inside and shelter in place, we can draw a circle around a 5-block area, send a message to everybody that signed up and say, stay inside until we notify you that it's all clear. And that's the thing that we really like about MCANs. We went through an extensive process of selection for MCANs. And when we looked at the Everbridge product and we thought that one was the best, the thing we liked so much about it was that we're going to be able to send out an all clear. The Weather Service, as you guys well know, does a really, really nice job of notifying you.
But they don't usually notify all clears.
They're very reluctant to do that. Where we now have a product that we can watch that, you know, the county's a large, vast area. The west side of the county may be clear, so we'll take that portion of the county in cooperation with the National Weather Service in White Lake and say, I'm thinking about clearing my side of the county. They can't do that. Their parameters for declaring warnings are the county or not. So, but we can then send a message out to our participants and say, in the western half of Monroe County from certain access, let's say Lewis Avenue to the west, you're all clear, there's no more storms coming, the tornado warning has been lifted. Or an evacuation order. We're really excited to be working with our partners from DTE for the nuclear power plant. There's requirements that they have for alert notification in case of an accident at the nuclear power plant. Everybody in Monroe County gets that Fermi brochure in their mail every year. And that tells them how to prepare and what to do for those kind of things. Well, we're working in cooperation with them so they can send out messages as well. They can send out messages when they're going to do siren testing of the Fermi sirens. And we can send out messages specific to evacuation routes. You know, if we're going to evacuate 2 miles around the plant, we can tell them where we want them to evacuate to. If we want to go to Ida schools, if we want to go to Dundee schools, where we want them to go to. So this tool has multitude of uses, but the big thing is we got to keep the public engaged. And organizations like this who reach out to the public all the time and can get the message out that yearly you have to check that message. Are you getting the messages? Are they coming through on your phone? Or did you change cell phones? If you changed cell phones and didn't change your MCAN profile, you're not going to get the message anymore. And we're always looking at better deals for cell phone providers and things like that. So we have to keep that data current. So we keep the data current, it's going to work really well.
You can even choose which announcements you get, can't you? I mean, if you don't want to be alerted about the, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't, about the fire hydrants being flushed, you can designate the type of announcement you want.
Absolutely, Doug, you can do that. The only thing you can't opt out of is the emergency messages.
Right.
We're going to get you an emergency no matter what. We have to. You know, that's something we want to make sure everybody in Monroe County is prepared.
It's life-saving.
It absolutely is. But you're right. If they don't want to know about the siren maintenance, if they don't want to know about the water maintenance or bridges out for some reason, flood waters have washed a bridge out that's critical to a jurisdiction, you don't have to get that. You can opt out of that. And the great thing about our system is it gives us a lot of data as well. When you sign up, there's options for, are you hearing impaired? Are you visually impaired? Are you mobility impaired? Are you medication dependent? So by pulling up this tool, the first responders can look and say, okay, we need to focus on making sure that these people in this geographic area are taken care of, whether they're evacuated, whether a first responder goes there and has actually touches them to make sure that there is no need.
I know we're running a little close on time. I think as we get towards the end, we need to tell people, how do they sign up for this?
That's right.
It's really easy. There's a website. You can go to co.monroe.mi.us and then /MCANS, and that'll take you right to our site. And that will get us right into the main page for Monroe County Emergency Management. There's a lot of tips and preparedness stuff on there, so I kind of like to talk about that one. Or an alternate website is mcans@monroemi.org. mcans@monroemi.org. That's going to take you right to the portal, and all this stuff is web-based. And you're going to have the initial sign-up place that you can go to, and you can have the recurring sign-up. So when you go back into that to update your profile every year, to make sure your phone numbers are right, you use that mcans@monroemi.org.
And if I have trouble or I'm not internet savvy, I don't have a computer, is there a fallback way to get into the system?
Give me a call. We deal with that kind of stuff every day. So 734-240-3135, and we'll be glad to take care of you.
734-240-3135. You know, I think we could talk about this for another hour. This is really good information. And viewers, if you have questions, do take advantage of the website or the programs that Mark offers, or call and ask questions. It's the time to be prepared is before something happens.
Very eloquently put, Doug. I agree wholeheartedly. Call us anytime. We'll be glad to come to your organization and even talk to the organization about preparedness, anything you need.
How is this funded? It doesn't cost a resident anything to sign up for this program, right?
We were able to capture federal grant funding for the sustainability of MCANS. So it's all federal grant funded, and we're hoping to be able to sustain that in years to come.
We certainly want it to continue, and one way to help ensure that it continues is for people to participate and be a part of it and utilize